Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello, my comic book friends, and welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. I am Gary, your host. This is where I like to take a look at some older comics, talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and examine the stories and the art. And right off the bat, I got a frog in my throat. And this time, I want to take a look at this Archie graphic novel. This is from 2008, actually originally from a few months earlier. Was from Archie New Look series book 2. Now in the mid 2000s, Archie Comics started doing something a little different. They had what they called Archie New Look series, in which the would have longer form storytelling to graphic novel length, told in 4 or 5 chapters, serialized in their Comics Digest titles, and these stories would be the lead story, and then follow up with their regular their regular fare for their digest comics. And they did, I think, a total of 5 of these graphic novels. And one of the things that were characteristic of it was that they differed from the traditional Archie art style. The individual artist's regular style, and the regular style, and they had which was normally more realistic than the cartoonish fashion of these of their comic style and house style. That's what I'm trying to say. And they're generally more dramatic in nature. And then, of course, those stories would not necessarily fit into their regular Archie storylines. As far as continuity, that's what I'm trying to say. Ooh, I'm not doing too well this morning. And this book that we're looking at is Jughead, the Matchmakers. And this book was, this is from 2008, and it was written by Melanie J. Morgan, with pencils by Joe Staton, inked by Al Milgram, with colors by Stephanie Vazzo. I think that's how you pronounce her name. Yeah, and it says the New Look features stories produced with more realistic looking artwork, longer and more dramatic storylines, and as a series of 5 graphic novels, all of them, as far as I can tell, were written by Melanie J. Morgan. Now, I've talked about Joe Staton before, and then, of course, the inker is Al Milgram, a long-time feature over at Marvel Comics. And Joe Staton, to my knowledge, this is his only Archie work, but I may be mistaken. It's the only one that I've seen that I am aware of off the top of my head. He may have done some in their traditional Archie style, but I don't know. He of course, came from Charlton Comics, co-creator of E-Man, and I just talked a little bit about him in an episode about an E-Man comic, and of course he later for several years was the artist on. Of course, he did several years at DC, and then was the artist on the Dick Tracy comic strip for several years. And does all kinds of things. His style evolved some over the years, but he still maintained a certain quality that's noticeable. Some of my favorite work, aside from his E-Man, some of my favorite work of his was on the what's her name, Huntress for DC, and his natural style is more cartoonish in nature, slightly cartoonishly stylized, which shows up in this. And Melanie J. Morgan, well, and said, and I thought, oh, good, it's a female writer, because it's it's so an industry so overwhelmingly male, with more females getting in there. Well, then I discovered, because I was doing research on Melanie, and Melanie is the pen name of Michael Joseph Pawlowski. How disappointing. He began his comics writing career in the 1970s, but before that, he was surprisingly a professional football player for the New England Patriots in 71 to 73. And he has also been a teacher of art, philosophy, and other subjects. And he also wrote, or part of, writing the Riverdale High series of teen novels. And he's also written for Marvel, Charlton, and Murray Comics, which company I am unfamiliar with, and DC. So how about that? So, So even one of the female creators turns out to be a guy. I don't know why he's using that pen name, but he does. But here, I'll take a little look here. I'll give you a brief overview. It's the graphic novel version is slightly smaller than a standard comic book size. You can see by comparison, but it is larger. See if you can see that. Yeah. So, but of course, it is larger than the digest size comics. It's a convenient size. Okay, and the story starts off with Archie, Betty, Veronica, and Reggie had been on a movie date together with Jughead, and they were reflecting before Archie gets into Pops. One of the interesting things is, because there's always so much dialogue, and what could wind up being a bunch of talking heads is very done. Staton's art is very interesting, that he keeps it visually interesting, moving around so that it's not just static talking heads, even though that's all it actually is. It keeps it, and a lot of good background detail, more realistic detail, and the like. Okay, and in the story, they were there, and then while Jughead wasn't there, they're in Pops are waiting for Juggy to appear. They're lamenting, especially Veronica. She's basically the instigator in this. That Jughead is often a fifth wheel with them when on these group outings, because he's always solo. There he is munching on his disgusting anchovy pizza, and they get to talking, and they decide that they are going to need to come up with a match for him, especially since there is a high school picnic coming up, and there's a series of competitions for couples, and they want Juggy to not be left out on that, so they have to be matchmakers and come up with a girl for him. And of course, he's not into the girls, and so he's Betty is kind of interrogating him a little bit, and they're trying to find a girl for him, and then they're having in gym class they're playing volleyball, and they discover that this is both the boys and the girls playing together, and they discover that this one girl, Sandy Sanchez, and Jughead make a good team on this. They're playing the game. They set up and everything, and she is a good student. She is a good athlete, and think she would be a perfect match. They seem to do so well together. They even talking together, and so they try to set them up, and that's how they do it. They decide. Now this story is all, even though it's a Jughead story, it is all told from the perspective of Jughead's friends, not from Juggy's perspective. So they're going to have a meetup at the movies. The girls bring Sandy along. Don't tell them they're meeting up with the boys, and the boys bring Juggy along, and they basically force basically a set-up blind date, ambush blind date. And so while they're getting their goodies and the others have gone in, Jug and Sandy are talking, and then pretty soon you see them coming in, and they're like holding hands, and they're sharing their goodies, and they're watching the movie, and sees that they're not sitting together with the rest of the group. Juggy's got his arm around her, all this other stuff. Then they're always hanging around together. Juggy and Sandy are always together, and sometimes blowing off the rest of the gang. And at school, they're together between classes and before and after classes and the like. And then they're disappointed because Jug's not eating lunch with them like he normally does, and Sandy is bringing him his lunch, and it's healthy food, stuff that he doesn't normally eat. No hamburgers, no all this other stuff, all this other thing, and they think, well, what's going on? He's changing. Jughead is changing, and the girls find that. See that Sandy is blowing off study dates together, and she seems to be not paying as close attention to her grades, and she was always real big on that, trying to make sure she gets into a good college. And then Juggy appears, and he doesn't have his usual crown hat on. He turns out that Sandy thought he should wear something. He should get rid of that hat, so he's wearing a standard ball cap and things like that. And she can't call him Jughead anymore. He has to go by Forsyth because she thinks it's better and more dignified. Then it comes the day of the picnic, and they're setting everything up for the picnic. And the last two parts are primarily events at the picnic. Just competition, canoe race, a bouncy ball race, egg toss, funny little things going on in there. So it's as well. It is somewhat more dramatic. It is also more, still maintains a lot of the standard Archie humor in some of their longer stories. And they go off and eat together. Have the egg toss, all this other stuff. Some people get disqualified. Someone's injured. Fewer competitors, and in the end, inter conflict between Veronica and Reggie and stuff, who are a pair, and finally, Jughead and Sandy finally win the last competition, when they win the most of the events, and then they get the trophy, and they're holding up the trophy, and everyone says, "Kiss him, kiss him, kiss him." So why not? Sandy gives him a big kiss, and I think that's probably Jughead's first kiss. And boing, and then we see a few days later. Jughead has called his friends together, and he shows that he's got a ring. He's going, oh my gosh. And then Sandy shows up, and he gets down on one knee and asks Sandy to marry him. And they're all aghast, horrified. What? No! And then Juggy and Sandy burst out laughing. It was all set up. And this is why you saw everything from the friend's perspective. Because Sandy and Jughead figured out what they were doing, and they played it up. The whole thing. They played the whole thing up as a joke on make everything backfire, see how much this stuff could change them. He's got his own hat back on, and then they're together eating their gross anchovy pizza. But then, later, Archie's walking with the girls, and they see off in the distance, because they're not really boyfriend, girlfriend, and they're not ready for that stuff. But they're off in the distance. You can see Sandy and Jughead walking off in the distance, hand in hand. Oh my gosh, maybe they did set them up. Oh, and that's a fun little look at this Jughead, the Matchmakers graphic novel from Archie Comics, 2008. Thank you for joining me. Please like, share, subscribe. Oh, and if you like this book, I'm sure it is available on Amazon at least, and I'm sure from Archie Direct sales or in the comic shops, the ones that carry Archie stuff. And so thank you. Please like, share, subscribe. Do leave a comment. Do you like Archie comics? Do you like the Jughead stuff? What do you think about the Archie New Look series? I've got some of the others I'll cover too. And remember, people, comics are art.